This is Wraith from Wraith Rain. I'm an author of serialized gay romance fiction. Every week on this podcast, I'll be reading a chapter from one of my gay fantasy shifter serials called Dragon's Reign. I'll explain at the break how you can find out more about this story and others I write. So let's get to it. Chapter 12, Rights and Wants. Mom, Dad! Caden popped up from his seat like a jack-in-the-box and was by the door in seconds, tugging at the locks ineffectively before Valerius had a chance to think. Though their voices were muffled by the thick wooden doors, Caden's family were calling for their son loud enough that they could be clearly heard. "Caden!" a masculine voice cried. "It's Dad. It's okay, son. Just hold on. We're going to get you out of there."
"Caden, I got Mom and Dad as fast as I could. Are you okay?" said a young girlish voice, Tilly, if he remembered correctly.
"Caden, are you all right?" an older female asked with a quaver in her voice. "I'm fine. I'm totally fine," Caden called to them. "What does your family think I am doing to you in here?" Valerius asked, annoyed in spite of himself. Though really, hadn't he tried to kill Caden earlier? That was Raziel's doing, Valerius thought. But then again, they do not know that. Caden snorted and pointed out just that. "You do know that everyone watched our aerial acrobatics today, and me icing you." Valerius scowled. "That was a lucky shot. Don't get cocky." Caden grinned over his shoulder at him. "Yeah, I guess that wouldn't work a second time." "No, it would not. So, a little help here?" Caden tugged meaningfully at the door. "My father sounds like he's going to blow a gasket." "We are not done speaking." But Valerius did stand up. He hated people in his quarters. It was bad enough with Caden and his purring dragon in here. Now he would have to deal with all of Caden's family too? "We can talk in front of my family, can't we?" Caden gave him the equivalent of puppy eyes. "No," he answered firmly, but he did take a step towards the door. Caden's eyes widened. "Really? Is it like secret dragon shifter business?" "Yes, in part. Your family will complicate what is a simple—" "Yeah, simple. I'm staying. You and Raziel need to get your heads around it," Caden muttered as he tugged at the lock some more. Raziel let out black smoke from its nostrils, but continued to remain hidden in a dark cave, leaving Valerius to deal with all of this himself. He should prefer it, considering his spirit's lack of control in this matter. Valerius's eyes narrowed. The boy was impish. "What did you say?" "What?" "Nothing. Just trying to get this door open. Come on, lend a hand, please." More puppy eyes. "Get away from there. You do not know who is all outside." "We're two dragon shifters, Valerius. Aren't we like invincible or something?" But Caden did move back. "I may be. You, however, are another matter." Valerius, though, was surprised at how he did not feel at ease until Caden moved behind him. He reached for the tablet that showed the camera outside his rooms. There were more there than just Shioni and Caden's family. Simi and Nagoye were present, as well as two strangers in suits. He could smell their feathers. "Raven shifters," he thought. "Does your father work for a law firm, Caden?" he asked. "Yeah, he's a lawyer. Why?" Caden looked over his shoulder, and Valerius felt a line of warmth from the young man who stood a little behind him. "Oh, I don't know who those guys are, but they do look like lawyers." "They are Raven shifters," Valerius said. "So, likely partners in Dad's firm." Caden's forehead furrowed. "But what are they doing here?" "They are here because they are your father's employers," Valerius guessed. Caden frowned. "Dad's always complaining that the partners never pay attention to him. He's been a senior associate forever." "Is he not competent?" "What? Yes, of course he's competent. My dad's brilliant, but he says—" Caden bit his lip. "What? What does he say?" "I will not let them in until you tell me," Valerius threatened. Caden let out a sigh. "He says that they only let him in to begin with because he's human. You know, to make them look like everything's equal when it's not. They don't give him big cases unless he brings something in himself, And even then, a partner will take it from him. He was top in his law school class, but it doesn't matter. And because they already have one human partner, he says they don't see a need for another. Valerius studied the unhappy expression on Caden's face. This young man had no idea of any of the power he wielded. His father could be head of that firm with a simple request from his son. The Raven Shifters were only here because they thought that they could get something out of it at best, or were trying to protect their firm's name at worst. Yet Caden seemed to have no idea that he had any power at all. He really does not understand what has happened to him, Valerius thought. It is true innocence. He is not playing coy. We shall see, Caden, Valerius said quietly. Caden's head lifted in confusion. I don't understand. You will. Caden frowned again. Where are Landry and Wally? I am certain they are fine. Simi would have dropped them off, he said. He hoped that was true. No, he knew that was true. I just want to make sure that the claw didn't lock my friends up, Caden pointed out. I am sure they did not. Valerius would have to actually ask. Valerius then undid what was a very complicated lock, and then a grinding of gears as a locking mechanism was engaged. The doors then began to open on their own. He shooed Caden further back, which got him a genuine smile. As soon as the doors were fully open, the family tried to surge inside, but stopped short when they saw him. But Caden popped around inside and said, Don't be afraid, you guys. It's just Valerius. Just Valerius, Valerius thought. He turned to give the young man a look of incredulity, but Caden was already brushing past him to greet his family. Shione's muffled laughter had him simply shaking his head and retreating towards the fireplace. If the young man wished to put himself in danger, then he would let him. But Simi and Nagoye were there if something should occur. Both claws crossed their arms over their chests and bowed before closing the doors to his chambers and taking positions on either side of them. And really, Caden's family wouldn't hurt him, and all the Raven Shifters could do at the best of times was caw and peck at him. Then legal him out of existence, Valerius thought. But he is in no present danger of that. Valerius stood with the fire at his back and his arms crossed over his chest as Caden was engulfed in the arms of his family. Well, some of them anyways. A tall blonde man in a tailored suit that screamed lawyer, and Tilly hugged Caden tightly. The mother, he assumed the older woman was his mother, stood back and looked at her son with a mixture of love, concern, and something else. It seemed to Valerius as if she was acting like a clear wall of bulletproof glass had appeared between her and her son. Shione moved around the group and drifted to his side. Her eyes, though, were always on Caden and his family. The mother is one of the faith. I think she's having a little trouble with Caden being the 9th dragon shifter, Shione murmured. Valerius frowned. If she is of the faith, then why is she acting like there is a barrier between herself and her son? Or perhaps she is not that affectionate of a woman? Shione let out a small breath. She seemed in shock and denial to me on the way here. She kept repeating that it was impossible for Caden to be the 9th dragon shifter. We actually picked her up at a faith meeting that was praying for the white dragon. Praying for? Valerius let out a sigh and rubbed the top of his nose as if he felt a headache coming on. So her faith is faltering then? On the contrary, I think she believes even more, which means she's lost her son in a very profound way, Shione murmured. It is not the rejection that we see in some families, but I worry about this, Valerius. Watching the almost dazed yet sad look on the woman's handsome face, had Valerius frowning. Did Caden notice her distance yet? He surprisingly hoped not. It will distress him, Valerius realized, which will just make him more difficult to deal with. Or that, at least, was what he told himself. You recognize Caden's sister Tilly, of course, and his father, Caden Bryce, is the one hugging him. Shione filled him in. The other two are Thomas Storn and Leonard Geisler, of Brady, Geisler, and Moore, attorney at law. They are the head partners in Mr. Bryce's firm. Raven Shifters, of course. The two Raven Shifters were both lean men in black suits. Mr. Storn had sandy blonde hair, a blue tie, and rather exuberant eyebrows. Mr. Moore's hair was black, though thinning, with a pronounced widow's peak, a red tie, and a narrow nose that allowed a pair of wire-rimmed glasses to just perch on the very top of it. Both men had the raven shifter gaze. It was unblinking and intensely alert. They were watching Caden like he was another bird, and like they were hawks. "What about Wally and Landry?" Valerius asked. "I did not think it would be wise to have them underfoot. They are down with some of the kitchen staff having something to eat," Shioni said simply. "I made sure to take their phones away so they cannot inform anyone of what they know." "You think of everything, Shioni," he said with appreciation. She smiled and actually pinked a little with the praise. "I do try." "And why are they here?" Valerius asked finally about the two raven shifters. "They are not family, and I did not invite them." "I believe," Shioni said out of the corner of her mouth, "that they are here to protect Caden's rights." "What rights?" he snapped as he turned to her. The conversation that had been taking place amongst the Bryce family died at his tone, and everyone turned towards him. Shouldn't we be bowing?" Mrs. Bryce asked as she was lowering herself to bow low and encouraging her daughter and husband to do so as well. But Mr. Bryce, eyes bright with anger, grasped her shoulder and almost hauled her upright. "No, we are not bowing to the person who tried to kill our son." "Yeah, he's really mean," Tilly echoed. "I'm mean?" Valerius thought. "Dad, it wasn't like that." Seeing his father's look of disbelief, Caden quickly backtracked. "Yes, the battle thing happened, but it was sort of a mistake. Kind of a mistake. Right, Valerius?" Caden was looking at Valerius, who inclined his head. "Right, so no one is killing anyone, and maybe we wouldn't have to bow or anything." He looked at Valerius again, who slowly inclined his head, agreeing to the no bowing, though he wanted the raven shifters to remember who they were talking to. But he cared little for the bowing and scraping that so many others of his kind seemed to crave. "So, Dad, we're all good. Let's just all keep calm." For one moment, Valerius could see the white dragon spirit looking at him with such affection. He blinked and shifted uncomfortably. "You handled that very well, Valerius," Shioni murmured again. "Just wait. I'm not done yet," Valerius told her. Then he straightened to his full, impressive height. "Hi, I'm Wraith, and I write gay romance that transports you to different worlds with magic, monsters, interesting heroes, dangerous villains, and of course, true love. Dragon's Reign is one of the best things I've written, and I'm excited to bring it to you, read dramatically by myself. Every month, you'll get 2 to 4 chapters of the story read to you, and the story description is posted below so you can check that out. Dragon's Reign began with me asking myself one question. How would the world change if people knew that shifters were real? I hope you come with me on this journey to find out. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening to Dragon's Reign. The shadow of the black dragon appeared on the wall behind him, causing gasps and whimpers to exit mouths. Caden just looked impressed. "Mr. Bryce, Mrs. Bryce, Tilly, I know why the 3 of you are here, but these 2 gentlemen were not invited." He tilted his head towards the raven shifters. Mr. Moore adjusted his glasses as he inclined his head and said, "It is our honor to meet you, King Valerius. Please, if you will allow us to introduce ourselves, I am Mr. Moore, and this is Mr. Storn. We represent the Bryce family in this, matter." "Why would Caden choose you to represent him and his family when he could have had the best legal minds in my territory? In all the world, in fact?" Valerius asked. Raven shifters were snobs. They believed that they were the most intelligent of all shifters, and that meant definitely smarter than any humans, but he could use that against them. He wasn't surprised when Mr. Moore's feathers were ruffled. He let out an affronted sound that quickly turned into a cough as Mr. Storn thumped his back vigorously, and with a practiced smile stepped forward to undoubtedly explain what his partner meant. "My king," Mr. Storn said with a bow of his head, "Mr. Bright is an esteemed colleague of ours, so it is more than a simple matter of legal acumen, but also trust that brings us here." Valerius's gaze slid to Mr. Bryce at that description of him, and he saw the slight tightening of the human's jaw. Caden's description of how they treated this likely intelligent human father was most likely worse than his son knew, especially for male pride to bear. "And are you, Mr. Bryce, an esteemed colleague of theirs? Have they treated you as such before your son became a shifter?" Valerius asked. Caden was staring at Valerius, open-mouthed, as if he couldn't quite believe that Valerius was shaming the people who had not treated his father properly. Valerius told himself he was not doing this for the boy. He should actually want Caden to have the worst legal counsel available, because it would be easier then to deal with him. Not that the law actually mattered. His territory was his territory. He could allow in or kick out anyone he chose. But the thought of kicking Caden out, all innocent imp that he was, might make Valerius feel a little unwell. But what else could be done? He could not allow Caden to stay as he wished. He needed stability for himself in Raziel and the world, as Alarion made himself a menace. So why exactly was he stepping in to shame the Ravenshifters, considering all he had just thought? Mr. Bryant's keen, dark blue eyes, the same eyes as his son, flickered to his partners and then back to Valerius. "I respect their legal minds, King Valerius. I think that you seek to pit us one-on-one, and that would not be in my son's best interest." Valerius shrugged. "Your son, and all to do with him, are not legal matters at all." "On the contrary," Mr. Moore said with a shake, "they are absolutely legal matters, as the agreement between all of the dragon shifters was that each dragon take an equal percentage of the earth. Now, Caden is the 9th dragon. That agreement is clear that—" "Wait!" Caden threw up his hands as if to physically stop Mr. Moore's words from reaching Valerius's ears. Caden had seen Valerius drawing up to his full height as Mr. Moore spoke, and he had seen the shadow of the black dragon on the walls of the tower. "I'm not interested in ruling. I just want—" "Caden," his father said, as he reached over and put a firm hand on his son's shoulders. "Don't say anything. We need to confer, and then your legal representatives can speak for you to this person." "Dad, this is between Valerius and me," Caden said. "Now, young man," Mr. Storn said avuncularly, as if there were some kind of old uncle that Caden had known since he was a boy, "from what we've seen, things perhaps are not as they should be between you and King Valerius. Your rights are very important. Your rights get you what you want. You speak of the law as if it is this thing beyond all of us." Valerius tilted his head low. He knew that his eyes were like glowing embers. Shioni touched his back gently, but he let those embers burn bright. "But I am the maker of the law. I am the law." "Will the other dragon shifters agree with that?" Mr. Moore asked. "Agree?" Valerius roared, his temper's last rotten chord snapping with a terrible suddenness. Raziel came thundering out of the cave and wanted to shred these raven shifters into feathery pieces. "They don't get to agree or disagree. I am king!" "King Valerius," Shioni shouted, "please forgive them." But her words meant nothing. Valerius's lips skinned back from his teeth. He felt his body turning molten as it prepared to shift. He knew he shouldn't. He knew he had to draw this anger back in. But it was too much. Much too much. His skin rippled as dragon bone wanted to burst forth from within him. Wings wanted to burst forth from his back. His neck wanted to elongate and grow. His body should fill this room. "No, don't. Not here. We'll kill them too," Valerius begged Raziel. But the black dragon was in a full fury as it spat gouts of fire with the words, "They think we care for the other dragons. We shall kill them. We shall kill everyone. We shall make them all ash, and then we shall soar in the skies, free of others." "No, that's not what I want," Valerius cried. He felt Shioni trying to reach him again. Both Simi and Ogoye were surging forward from their places by the doors. Their eyes were huge. They knew he was going to shift. They knew it was going to be bad. The raven shifters were fluttering together, eyeing the door. Tilly was grasping her brother's leg so hard that her knuckles were white. Mrs. Bryce, though white as a ghost, looked like she was seeing God for the first time. Mr. Bryce was tugging at his son, daughter, and wife to try and move his entire family out of harm's way, but suddenly Caden shrugged his family off, as if their hold on him was nothing. And he was between Valerius and everyone else, front and center, right there. All Valerius could see, smell, touch, and taste was Caden. Caden had a hold of Valerius's shoulders. He was making soothing sounds. The white dragon was murmuring gently at him as well, stretching its long neck forward as if reaching towards Raziel, who was snorting fire. Neither Caden nor the white dragon spirit seemed afraid of him or Raziel at all. They were like cool islands in a sea of fire. "Caden, get away! You need to get away! Get your family away!" Valerius shouted at him, but it was only mentally, somehow hoping that Caden would hear these unspoken words. "You were right, Valerius. We should just be talking. You and me. It's better if we talk without anybody else," Caden was saying. "Don't listen to them. You are king. You are my king. I don't care what anyone else says but you." "Caden! Caden, get away from him! He's going to shift!" Mr. Bryce cried, his fingers clawing at his son's body, trying to drag him away. And that caused yet another bout of rage to overwhelm Valerius. They were trying to take Caden from him. It was one thing for him to send the young man away, but no one was taking him. Caden acknowledged him as king. Caden was his. "Dad." Caden's voice was surprisingly calm. He addressed his father, but did not turn his gaze from Valerius. "Everything is going to be fine." "Shioni?" "Yes, Caden?" she asked, immediately stepping towards him. "Please escort everyone from the room." "I'm sure my family is hungry," he said simply. "I'll join them later." Shioni did not argue. Instead, she inclined her head, as she did for Valerius when he gave her an order. She extended her arms to both sides and started to herd everyone towards the door. "I'm not leaving my son," Mr. Bryant shouted. "Caden, we're not leaving you," Tilly sobbed, her face streaked with tears. "Dad, Till." Again, Caden was so calm. "I'm a dragon shifter." Tilly made a gulping sob. His father's mouth opened and shut. "That doesn't—" "It matters. It's all that matters," Caden whispered, as if the words were coming from somewhere deep inside of him, from a place of truth. "Mr. Storn, Mr. Moore, if you really want to do a solid by my family, help Shioni get them out of this room." The two raven shifters gave jerky, bird-like nods, but finally they were able to hustle everyone out with Shioni's and the Claw's considerable help. The last face Valerius saw was Mr. Bryce's, looking agonized. As soon as the doors shut once more, Caden let out a breath. "Well, I could definitely tell that dead lawyer jokes are your thing. My dad has dozens of them. When you're both in a better mood, he can tell them to you for hours. Like, what's the name between the dinosaurs and ethical lawyers? They're both extinct." "No time for jokes, especially bad jokes," Valerius gritted out, his voice finally returning to him. "Now is the best time for bad jokes." Caden smiled at him gently and stroked his shoulders. "You're way too serious all the time, Valerius." And just like that, the anger was suddenly gone as fast as it had come. The tension bled from Valerius's shoulders slowly but surely. The embers in his eyes banked. While he stared just at Caden's beautiful face, Raziel stared at the white dragon spirit. Raziel shifted from foot to foot, uncertain, but not filled with rage or fear from before. Caden's dark blue eyes were like deep pools that quenched the fire within him. The anger, the stress, the uncertainty fell away as he looked at Caden. His hands unfisted at his sides. Blood trickled down his fingers from where he had cut his palms with his clawed armor. "Are you all right, Valerius?" Caden asked, studying his face. "I am," he answered tersely, but he did not move away from Caden. The young man exuded this coolness, just like ice. "I do not know what is wrong with me since you came." I'm sorry, Valerius. I don't want to cause you pain, Caden assured him. It is not pain you cause me, Valerius murmured as he brought up a bloody hand and touched Caden's luminous face. It is. Seeing the smear of blood he left on that fair cheek caused Valerius to reel back away from him. Caden reached for him, but he stayed out of touching distance, backing up towards the balcony. Valerius, where are you going? Caden demanded. Go to your family, Valerius said. I need to. He didn't know what he meant to say. Caden confused him. He needed to get away from this maddening boy. He needed to be himself again. We need to talk, though, remember? And the anniversary feast, and the food coming here, and stuff. You can't go. Don't go, Caden cried, reaching for him, even as the white dragon spirit strained for Raziel. Responsibilities clawed at him, and the desire to stay with Caden was so strong that it felt like an anchor tied to his ankles. But he had to get away, just for a little while, to clear his head, to come back fresh. I need to fly, Valerius murmured and turned in one fluid movement as he spun on his heel and ran towards the balcony. He transformed between one breath and the next. He launched himself into the air and flew off under the light of the moon, even as he felt something tying him to one young man on Earth. I hope you enjoyed this week's chapter. If you want to read ahead in Dragon's Reign or read the many other stories hosted there, you can purchase a membership to get access to wraithrain.com, or you can continue to listen along here for free. If you'd like to learn more about wraithrain.com and me, there's a link in the description down below.